Great, thank you. Okay, we're ready to start. Okay, well, let's talk about that a little later on. We got to do this meeting right now, but thank you. Okay, are we ready to go? It's Kitty Pies. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Grace. Great to have YOUers here today. All right, so why don't we just take a minute and do a centering prayer? So, loving Spirit, we give thanks for this gathering today, for this meeting as we come together for the greater good of Unity North Spiritual Center. We're grateful for all the people attending and for all that unfolds in perfect divine order. And we just say thank you, God, for a great gathering. And so it is. Amen. All right. So I want to talk about what happened to light a fire under us. And I'll let you just follow along with the notes because I thought it would be easier for you to remember this way. But I said a child shared her feelings and so did her parents. So what happened was Chris and Rhonda's daughter, Serena, was taking a walk with her mom. Do you want to say it or do you want me to? Okay. And they passed a church, and Serena stopped cold and just said, I want to go to a different church. I'm tired of being the only child in Sunday school. And so, so that kind of, was a real process then for them. Rhonda came and talked to me and then wrote a letter to the board about it. And, it caused them to think about whether they should stay or go, what they should do for their daughter, obviously. And so that basically lit a fire under us. And the way we responded was, to basically, in a letter, let them know, and also in a meeting that, all we can do is what we can do and move forward to try to grow the church. And if it's the wrong time for Serena, we can't hold them back if they need to leave. We would bless them on their way. We don't want that to happen, but we also, it's a lose-lose situation if we all have to work frantically into burnout to keep anybody to staying at Unity. And so always we bless people on their way if they need to leave. And our prayers are that it works out and they don't have to, and that their daughter can find greater happiness here and more connection, more kids. And we all want more kids for the youth ministry. And we all want more community in that sense, a larger community. And so what happened is then we called a team together. I first called it the brainstorming team, and Chris and Rhonda came, and the board came, and also several others interested. Christine, who's on the board, asked Howard. They've been longtime parents in the church. And then Sadie came, their daughter, and she's actually the one who called all the YOUers to be with us today. But and then obviously our youth ministry people and so on. And so we ended up changing the name in the second meeting to Expansion Team. And so we discussed the history of the issue because when I arrived at the end of 19, the youth ministry was already seemed pretty vibrant, but some of the YOUers were on the verge of graduating. A couple of the sponsors were leaving, and I could tell there was a shift happening. And then 3.5 months later, COVID hit, and then it all, went away for a while. So, but before that, there was some history of it beginning to go down and families leaving and so forth. So we talked about that. We talked about our love of unity, our desire to share and spread the teachings, the longing to grow, and we discussed grounding ourselves in spirit and a plan to do that. And then approximately 4 and 5 people in that initial group had interest in marketing and could be part of a marketing team. And so, that's sort of a separate spin-off team. The others in that team are creative and supportive in other ways. And I'm just saying, anybody who wants to be part of this expansion team can, but we want you all to know what's going on. And then we determined the need for this community gathering today so that the congregation can be aligned in both intention and affirmation as we move forward into the future. So also so that we grow our adult, our youth and family ministry. And then we also determined to bring in some current and former YOU kids to remind everyone of their importance and help to energize us. And Sadie, would you like to say something for a minute about your YOU experience and what a difference it made for you? If you stand up and the camera's up at the top too, so the people online can see you as well.
Yeah, I am Sadie Grinsell, daughter of Christine and Howard Grinsell, and I graduated from Anoka/YRU in 2012. So I remember the first church, at least my first church, being across Coon Rapids and growing up there. I think we started there when I was about 2 and running around the sanctuary and everything. And I think I shared a Father's Day prayer that I actually found recently with all the letters. F is for whatever. I remember christening my little 2 siblings. I have an older brother, Sid, and then Sylvia and Sam, and kind of growing up this whole time in unity. And YRU was really where I feel like I was able to step into who I am, because it was really a community. At that time, there was a lot of us, Austin and Junior and Brian and Paige and Grace and Becca and Yolanda and Laurel and all these people. And we were really able to come together and be who we were. And that's where I was able to kind of discover that I like doing this, talking in front of people, and just really having the comfort of being who I am and kind of being okay with that. Like going into high school, I remember one thing I noticed, I don't know if it was freshman year or one of the later years, but being able to walk into that first class every year or every quarter or whatever, not knowing who was going to be in your class, and just knowing like nobody in here knows who's going to be in their class. So we're all just experiencing this together, and that's fine. And, and not being that scared, having that fear of walking into new situations. And I've kind of been able to take that with me through everything. And I remember the first year in YRU, I actually think I was the last year that started in 8th grade, but so I was pretty young, and we learned about, Carol walked us through a whole bunch of different religions. So we learned about Wiccan and Druidism and Buddhism and Christianity, obviously, and all of these different religions. And it was just really eye-opening to have and gain that perspective within like the first year of this, youth group, and kind of look at, and really that's, I think, when I really started to understand like what unity really was and how accepting it really was. And then from that we did, I think the next year we walked through the whole unity course, whatever, the Charles and Myrtle and all of that, and kind of learn the history of unity. And that was great to then learn our foundation. From there, we kind of had different curriculum throughout the years, but we typically had 4 different types of Wednesdays. We would meet on Wednesdays around 7 or so before the Wednesday meditation, and then on Sundays between the morning and later session. But we would do like a Heart Talk Wednesday, a Learning Wednesday, a Service Wednesday, and then we would run the Wednesday service one night of the month. And it was so great to have that sense of responsibility, I guess, and service to the church in a sense, and to be able to create something. I know I wrote talks and meditations and things, and I've been able to take that with me too. Every once in a while I'll be driving and I'll have this weird little speech idea of like, that would be a great line for that type of speech, and I'll write it down. But I remember a couple of times like people coming back and being like, that was, those concepts and everything like that we created as this young youth group was really just like enlightening to the broader sense. I know we talked about yesterday at a event with the military was reverse mentorship. So being able to take somebody underneath you and learn from them, as the senior leader or whatever. And I felt like that's kind of what the respect was with the youth group and the church at the time too, was that we were really able to learn from you, but then you in turn were able to learn from us. And I wore my shirt because I told Grace I'm really bad at throwing away shirts. So I have a rally shirt on here, which I believe, I'm not going to say that I remember every lesson I ever learned from YRU, but I think this was one that we created. There was one year, each church or each sub-regi, we had the June rally, our fall rally, and a sub-regional rally. And so we ran the sub-regional rally one year in the spring, and we ended up putting an all-adult rally on here too, because we had all of the content. We're like, let's give it to the church. And so it was one Saturday, usually it was a full weekend, but one Saturday that we threw together everything and we led it all as if it was with our own, peers. And it was so much fun, and it was just a blast. And then we, a couple weeks later, before we put it on for the sub-region, and I had wrote down one word of my notes, and it was community. And then she talked about all of the stuff that I really felt was so true of that connection, and going to different military things. I'm in the National Guard. You get a very similar sense of community and super strong bonds really fast, and strong bonds through both good and bad situations. And then you go your separate ways after your schooling or whatever, and that falls apart. And sometimes you stay connected, sometimes you don't. But with Unity, what I've found is that the strings between us might be longer and droopier, and a little less, but they're so much stronger because I know that like in any sort of instance, for example, a couple years ago, someone in the, that I graduated with was going through or leaving an abusive relationship. She was able to call, it was 3 of us that showed up to get her out of that situation. And the other 2 I hadn't seen in years, and we were still able to like be there and show up and really support her in that. And I know that in many cases, there's been, different times in my life where I've just like wanted that connection again. And I've said before to other friends, and like, it's so nice to know people who knew you before you became an adult, or before you went through college, or before you went through whatever situation kind of changed you from that, young child with all these hopes and dreams or aspirations or whatever, and wonderful view of the world. And then when you realize like, well, that's not actually how it looks all the time. And kind of like having those friends, and that's really what I've seen YRU be for me, is like those friends that knew me before, who know who I am at my core when I had that time to grow and experience and explore, and saw what I was able to become before I felt like I had to be something else to be an adult. So that's been really great. And I've come back a couple times throughout the years since then, but I moved to Mound, and so it's kind of a 40-minute drive here. But I come, and every time I cry, every time I'm sitting, I just tear up, because it is such a place that I can like shed my skin and just be here as who I was and who I am. And, as any group during that age group, high school on, there's ups and downs, there's feuds, there's, can be cliquey things, and we all went through that together. But I think our pure, strong respect and appreciation for each other and who we were is what really like held us together, going on from there. So that is what I would hope to see for a future YRU program, especially in today's world. I know a lot of schools, my daughter just started kindergarten this year, and they have a section, they have gym and art and library and computer lab and yes time. And yes time is like yoga and emotional, social, something else, YESS. And they really talk about emotions and feelings and all of that stuff, and how, like, what's going on in your body when you're feeling these things, so that we can have like emotionally intelligent adults. It's fantastic. And I think high schoolers would be like creating a space for that in a time that can be so confusing and formative for them is what I hope a YRU could be for this group again, this church. My understanding is there aren't any Why are yours? Yeah.
Just to do that. Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
But I'm actually not going to say anything. I just invited our another young family to come and talk because they have to leave soon. So if it's okay to jump them ahead. Oh, okay.
Hi. Hi, I'm Paige Ray. I am former YOUer and former sponsor. And I was in YOU, graduated 2010. And then I served as a sponsor for almost 10 years. For those of you that aren't aware, a sponsor is one of the leaders for the YOU group. YOU has obviously started when I was a young teen, and then transitioned with me into my young adulthood. So it certainly has had a huge imprint on my life. I was just actually telling a story to my wife the other day about how I truly, truly believe that YOU formed me into not just like a kind person, which is a win, but also someone who is able to enter into the world and know how to be of service, how to bring people together, how to even public speak, how to get shit done. Really, like at the end of the day, like YOUers, we were on top of it. We had service projects. We did, um, services for Sunday, and we went to rallies. We were busy. And it was probably one of the busiest extracurriculars that I had. And I'm definitely something that I'm grateful for. Sadie, I was at the tail end of your chat, but I think you touched on relationships. It's obviously a huge component to that, and it is one of those things where you really can just like pick up, and it's been no years, and it's like, oh, hey, even though we literally don't ever talk, and that's kind of beautiful. But I'm going to speak a little bit about my time as a sponsor, because that's I think where it really just completely like clicked for me. Watching these young people come in, and you mentioned this in your talk, how like there is some reluctance to starting YOU, but then once you experience it, you just can't not be a part of it, and it has to do with it's a safe group of just true non-judgment, and a place to explore at a time when you are forming your identity. And to be able to do that in a space that is yours as a teenager, that's not where your parents are. Sometimes it's where your siblings are if you have a sibling close in age. But to be able to do that freely with safe adults and other safe, teenagers, it's invaluable. And I find that one of the greatest gifts is why the YOUers that I led still reach out to me, and ask for support and love, just to say hi. And they later, as they grow up, become my friends, which is really so special. So YOU is this really, really, really treasured community that I don't think a lot of the adults realize, unless you've had a child that has gone through it. If you don't have a child that's gone through it, pay attention to your YOUers. They are special. Show up for their services. I really ask the community to show up for our youth, because I was at the tail end when attendance was declining, and we would have services and we'd have parents show up. That's it. Our YOUers would spend hours working on their services, hours, and the only people in the audience was their parents. That sucks, because when you and I were in YOU, we would fill this place, and that was amazing. Talk about a great experience. So we have to show up for our youth. Otherwise, they were like, well, why are we doing this? Hi, BB. And I also I haven't been coming to Unity very much. I'm getting really, really like vulnerable and transparent here because that's just who I am. I haven't been coming because there hasn't been much of a youth program. My wife and I are still on the fence about whether or not we're going to continue because I'm going to show up for my kids to be able to have the YOU that I had. That's what's important to me. That's what I look for in a community is a place for my kids to be with other kids and to be able to get to a place where there is a very strong YOU presence like we had. I want that for my kids. So I would love to make that happen. Yeah.
We're all kind of in the same place. The question was, if you don't come here, where will you go? And
Okay, I just wanted to go on with a little bit more because more about what our expansion group did and looked into. So on number 4 on the sheet, where what happened was I started checking in with other ministers locally and in other states and talked to our regional rep, and we discovered the majority of our Unity churches in the country and region are going through exactly what we are, with only about 50% of people returning after COVID, and also with the youth ministry having problems as well. The church industry has been in a decline for the past 20 years, and COVID has been Unity's wake-up call. And young people are not coming or interested at present, and youth and family members, ministries throughout the entire movement and beyond really are struggling. So it's important to move through our grief for the past, to release it and, accept the new reality. And we're not doing anything wrong. We actually have done very well coming this far without tapping our savings and retaining a strong core group. And we also need to reinvent ourselves. So keeping our vision, mission, values in mind, determine who we are, what we already do well, and to market that. And so we did some research. I looked at the cost of a church marketing consultant, learned that it's too expensive for right now, found some good online social media marketing info, but it became very obvious that we need a social media person or persons to weave all the strands together and effectively promote us to the greater community. That's the one drawback we have right now. Though our greatest need is somebody who can help with social media. And hopefully some younger people who have it more in their cells. And so we have actions needed, how everyone can help. So uniting in consciousness to attract and grow, finding the part-time social media person, determining a target market, and we think that's women since they bring in men and children. Also Gen X parents. The 2 families we have left have Gen X parents. That's Aaron and Vanessa, and that's Chris and Rhonda. And not that we don't want to attract younger millennials, but it's a harder sell for them right now. They really don't necessarily want to be in church. Upgrading our website, which we're in the process of doing, spreading the word that Unity North is here. Also leaving Unity marketing cards and Unity business cards in strategic places and with interested people. We handed you a marketing card. I hope you all got one. So you can just leave cards like that around. We have more where those came from. And then spreading our classes and event flyers to friends, family, and others. Inviting adults and children to attend. Talking to young people and finding out what does interest them. Highlighting our youth ed program. And supporting one another in community. Making a commitment. Also, a commitment to call one of our prayer chaplains for support at least once a month. I had to add this because we have prayer as one of our values, And I can't tell you how underused our prayer chaplains are. And they have been through training, they go through a big process, and they are here for you every Sunday. Yes, Nancy? Yeah.
I just want to back up a smidge with the parents that we have here,
Yes.
that we do have the Gen X, but we also have a millennial couple.
Okay.
They are as present and as frequent as Aaron and Melissa are.
Great.
So I would like us to not gloss over my family
Good point.
because they are an integral part of our future. They're also an integral part of our community. And my daughter has been a steadfast leader in this community, and I would like her to start being seen as that.
Yeah, sorry, and I didn't know their ages, actually. But yeah, and I'm not meaning to say we shouldn't have millennials, because we want them. But I'm just saying that unity the unity movement is having a hard time with millennials, as a rule, showing up right now. So, yeah, so we need help about what would interest you more. So anyway, but I was on the prayer chaplains, and that we really encourage you to pray, make a commitment to call them once a month and let them pray with you. Yes, no.
I would like it when you send out the reminder that for Sunday service that you put the prayer chaplain's name and number on that. It's real hard for me to call after the service because we have to get on with our noon meal, and there's, I'd like to socialize with
Okay.
people.
Good point.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, lost my place. Thanking our volunteers and volunteering to serve at Unity. Welcoming any new people. We're not having a lot of new people now, but when we do, not to inundate them, but just to be aware of welcoming them and truly connecting with each other. So, ways and questions to invite more social time communication. Sometimes there's a few who will speak, but, when we just ask if anybody has anything, it's a little more intimidating, I think, to be virtual and to share, but we really want to see more of that. And then signing up for the fall series class and future classes, being part of our holiday auction and future events, and ask not only how's Unity helping me, but also how am I helping Unity. Tithing of time and talent and treasure, and remembering spiritual growth and practices, and keep showing up. So anybody can join our expansion or marketing team. So if you have interest, let me know. Let any of the board members know. Wanda, our board president, is over there. Let Wanda know if you have interest in getting involved in the expansion team, which is all about brainstorming and going forward into our future. Because really, like I said, COVID's been a wake-up call for Unity, and the different churches are having to reinvent themselves and do some different things to keep going and to renew ourselves and go forward into our future. So then, speaking this affirmation, often we have a new affirmation for you. We've given you little affirmation cards, but it's, I'll read it first, then we can say it together. Centered in prayerful intention, we give thanks for an overflowing abundance of spiritual awakening, prosperity, new members and children for Unity North Spiritual Center. Please say that with me together. Centered in prayerful intention, we give thanks for an
overflowing abundance,
spiritual
awakening,
prosperity, new members and
and children
for Unity North Spiritual Center. Was that God joining in? So any other actions or anything else, any comments from any of you?
My question was because if you're not finding something here, what are you looking for? So if we're going to help grow ourselves, then we would need to offer what you're looking for besides obviously just numbers of more children.
So what happened is when Serena had that conversation with me, attendance was a little bit sporadic in Sunday school. I think it was summertime. I don't remember for sure. But she felt like she was the only one. So what she needed wasn't here. So as a parent, I am a mom before I'm anything in this world. So then I will go where I need to go to get my child's needs met. So we had not found, it would be another Unity church somewhere, but we had not chosen where that would be yet. Does that, I didn't want to speak for Paige or Aaron and Litza, but does that represent? Okay. I'm getting nods of yes.
I also think that, do I have to be up here? Can I just stand right here? I'm sorry. I also think that one of the things that I've talked about this at length with my mom, but I also don't really know if my generation necessarily is looking for something on a weekly basis. And so I think that's another thing that is possibly going to impact what it looks like. Because I feel, this is myself, this is just me. I already feel overwhelmed as a parent with all that goes on during the week. Adding going to church every Sunday feels like another thing on my list. And yes, it's a break for me. Yes, my kids get to not be with me all the time, which is a win once we're here. But the act of sometimes just getting out the door is a lot. And so I think that that is something that we just need to be mindful of, is that maybe we need to reimagine. It's not always a Sunday morning, or maybe it's something else for us to be able to allow gathering to happen, but with it being sporadic a little bit to fit within lives.
Thank you. That's a good point. There are people my age who are here, and mostly the ones voicing what should happen and how we should fix things. And we forget sometimes that we're not fixing them for ourselves, that we're fixing them for another generation. Jim, I think, has his hand up. Chris, is there a way to? Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Well, thank you. I think I observed at least one or two people that are there in person with a handout that they're looking through the pages of what it says. Am I correct? And can I get a link where I can print out my own after this meeting?
The handout was just delivered live this morning. It's just really the notes on everything I just said. And yes, I can email it. But the question is who I email it to. I'm sorry? It can also be made available on the site, so Chris will do that.
Thank you.
Sure. Martha?
Yes, thank you, Paige. I really appreciate it. That's what we're here to hear, because we understand that there's obviously something changed, right? We want to hear what will be the best for you, what will serve you.
Can you hold your mic up?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. What would serve you, right? So it's because we know we don't have the answers, and we keep talking amongst ourselves. We're not going to find them because we don't have represented the different population that we're trying to serve. So yes, I encourage anyone else online or my daughters. To participate, because that's what we want to hear. So thank you. I really appreciate you here and your beautiful family.
Go ahead, Marianne.
I just want to say that I talk a little bit about the mental health issue, because it just strikes me as so ironic that, the churches are not, that they're seeing a reduction in attendance, while at the same time, I'm a mental health therapist, and within my profession, I'm just hearing all the time, there is just such a mental health crisis going on for children, adolescents, young adults. I mean, all the things that are going on in the world and the pandemic, and Unity with its just, it's positive spirituality and just what we have to offer. There's just this disconnect there. There's certainly the need out there. And so it just seems if we could find the way to make some of those connections, to maybe reach out to parents, as to let them know more of what we offer out there, and young adults, that that this is a resource that is available to them, that they may not necessarily be thinking in spiritual terms, but that's the healing. And even there's so much that Unity offers. I mean, for me as a therapist, I came here for my own spiritual healing, but then what it has done to inform my own practice, even if I'm not talking about it explicitly as spiritual practices, I do offer it, different, visualizations and meditation, and just the whole philosophies. I also offer, you can do this as a spiritual practice, you can do this as a mental health practice and inner knowing practice, but it's healing and it's stress management at its absolute finest and deepest. And so there just seems like there should be a way to make these connections. The need is there. People are looking for what we have to offer.
This is Sadie, and I just wanted to bring up a couple things we have talked about in the meetings, because kind of to your point and connecting it with Paige's, because I had brought up in one of the meetings of getting this, our information and everything into different communities that are, like-minded. So I feel like when I was in YRU, we had all these fantastic concepts of meditation and mindfulness and all these things that were like weird to the greater community, the greater population back then. And now they're becoming so popular and so common. And even in the military, like they have a meditation thing that you can offer your soldiers, and they're hitting on the spirituality. And so I mentioned, like, I don't know, little coffee shops or yoga studios, or like Wyzetta has a crystal shop, and all those little things, and kind of getting us into these spaces that hold similar values. And then we'd also talked about like a parenting support, because Rhonda mentioned that's why she ended up in Unity, because they provided either a parenting class or parent support or something along those lines. And so to tie in Paige's concept of maybe that might be what it looks like to some people, maybe they're not Sunday morning attenders for the service, but they find the community in one of our extra pockets. That's maybe once a month parenting gathering, or once a whatever, a yoga something, or try to capitalize on like the traits of people who are here, if they know certain things or have, education and information on a concept that might be more interesting, or might be interesting to somebody else, but maybe they'll end up in the Sunday service someday, but I don't know, idea.
Sue and then Nancy.
Excuse me, can I just say that Thomas Parker Swenson's wife has been trying to get people's attention and speak for quite a long time. I didn't want her to get passed up.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you, Candy. Sorry, I was just like sort of patiently waiting here. Hi, you all. We drop in virtually all the time because we're here in Arizona, but just for whatever reason, we decided to stay on. I was like, well, let's find out what they're talking about. We had no idea why we were dropping in this meeting, but then I was like, oh, maybe this is why. So first of all, Thomas and I, just giving a shout out to the family programs, Thomas and I wouldn't be married for 26 years and have two amazing, wonderful daughters if we hadn't stepped forward and answered the call to be sponsors, Unitine and YOU sponsors. That's literally how we met. This was being sponsors. So if anybody's like, I don't know why, if I don't have time, like that's a great, even if you don't have any kids in the congregation yet, this might be a great opportunity to step forward and say, all right, I'm willing to be that sponsor. And maybe what there is to do is to start a group of people to start setting an intention and prayerfully setting it as well as acting on it. I don't know, because I'm not up there physically with you all as to what you've done or not done. But definitely, so that was one thing I wanted to say, just giving a shout out about being a sponsor. The second thing is we did raise our children in Unity and Unitine, YOU thing, and everything everybody said is just so amazing and exactly what I would say about our kids' experience. And I know from having been in a very, very, very small church, which with sometimes they were the only one, but most of the time there was just them and a couple other kids participating, like maybe 2 or 3. But I'm telling you, it doesn't take much. I mean, I don't know how to say it. It was like our family and 2 other families, and we all had kids, and we were all very participatory in the church, volunteering. And so our kids would know that the other kids would be there. And to have that kind of experience where they were connected, at least knew some kids were going to be there. I mean, they're still friends with the kids that they went to, we're all family friends now. They're like cousins almost, but it doesn't take much. That's all I wanted to kind of leave you with. It really doesn't take much, because we had a thriving YOU and Unitine group with just a small tribe of kids, and it worked. And one of the things that I keep hearing, just as a kind of a last shout out about this, is the kids want to participate. So sitting in the Sunday something was definitely not the highlight of what they did. Going out to get a smoothie and donuts afterwards was definitely the highlight, right? But it was that in that participating in those kind of activities, or going bowling, or even creating part of the church service, something they were participating with together was key. And that might be different now that people are online. And I'm happy to keep brainstorming with people, but what it might look like is joining with other churches for their kids' Zoom Sunday service or something like that, just so that you can start to say, hey, we got 2 kids here, you got 2 kids there. Let's at least get them together, or at a meeting place during the week or something like that, just as a brainstorm of possibility. So that's what I wanted to share. And thank you. We're so pleased to be able to participate with y'all from Arizona.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great.
So the
Thanks,
question, I'm Sue Bembenek, and I'm one of those old timers that walked across the bridge and was here when we formed this particular church from the old one. My question, I think, is about the word community now. I think it means something different to the age group that's coming up than mine. And the reason I say this is I sit in front of my house and people walk by with earbuds in their ears, and then I say hi and they don't hear me, then that comes out. And then we communicate. And I think there's this word in business like a silo, where you are in your office and you do your work, but you're not communicating with the rest of the office. And I think COVID did this somewhat to us. We all started to stay home. We all became very separate. We all communicated, but it was electronic communication. And we become almost uncomfortable and have lost, I think, our skills of how to communicate face to face. And I see this with a lot of these young people in my neighborhood that are uncomfortable. They have the children, but it's a different community now than what we grew up with. And so I think our challenge is, we know what our old system was, is once a week you come to a physical building, you get together, you have your programs and that, but I'm wondering, as you mentioned about yoga classes and some of this, I'm not sure if I'm reading this right, but it's more like a physical, do something together physically, like yoga and that. But part of what brought me to Unity, and I hope other people, are searching for the different, searching for paths that weren't traditional. searching for ways that I could live as a person or raise my kids. That was really out of the norm. And now I'm not sure how we get to intertwine that with more like people are more interested in yoga and coffee and maybe just living for the moment. You know, they're just trying to get through the moment. So some of this otherworldly things have lost their path. Yet I think that's what unity is all about, is seeing that bigger picture and finding ways to live in a world with these tools. So I don't have an answer for it, but I think one of the things as an adult that brought me here, and I find I would like to see more of, is classes in this building, getting us back together physically. If we have to Zoom a couple times, but then once a month, seeing each other here physically. And offering, I think, that metaphysical side of our unity, you know, our healing services, and getting a little bit out of the everyday and back into those other realms that are intriguing, but also hold tools for living in this world.
Part of the challenge of reinventing ourselves. Yeah,
Some of that chaos that you were talking about.
yeah, yeah.
How can I speak? I'm on Zoom. I don't even know if I'm being heard, actually.
Yes,
Anita, yes.
I don't, it's Bonita. Can you hear me?
yes.
Oh, okay. Like Sue, I've been coming to Unity churches, even including Unity Village, since 1980, actually 79. So I've seen a number of transitions, and I recall when this particular Unity became Unity Spiritual Community as opposed to Unity North Church. And well, that seemed verbally just a change in languaging. For me, it meant a lot. I also remember when, and this is just me, when it changed from 10:30 to 11, from 11 o'clock service to 10:30, cut me off from coming quite a few Sundays actually. And what I would want to participate in going forward, because I haven't been other than on Zoom sometimes and sending occasionally some donations, is a community. We don't have to meet on Sundays. I know my sister-in-law, who is a practicing Catholic, worked for 7 priests for years and years. She goes to a Friday night service, and quite a few people do. And they have, you know, like a meal together before, after. I'm not really sure what, but to create a sense of gathering as a community and doing something as a community, not necessarily, you know, having just programs here and programs there, which are important, but just gathering as a community, and that would include children or parents or visiting relatives, but planning a little more intentionally around creating and expanding a community of spiritual seekers. And as somebody had mentioned earlier, when I first came in, how, you know, the bookstore, and I ran the bookstore for quite a few years, carried, you know, a wide assortment of spiritual traditions, spiritual insights, places to explore. And new people would always be rather attracted to that. I remember noticing that quite a bit. But I'm looking for community. And I'm not looking for community on Zoom. And I'm 75 years old, so I'm looking for a community that includes a wide range and diversity of people. And then there's that word diversity. We don't have any diversity. We tried at one time. There was a whole group. Carol was part of it, and I was, and you know, some of the different Unity churches. I don't have any answers there. I think I don't know how we would do that, but it would be nice if we did have more diversity, and if somebody that expresses that diversity, or let's just say person of color, came, that they weren't the only one. I mean, we do have some diversity in terms of LGBT communities, which is wonderful. And I think that that's a community we need to reach out to more specifically and intentionally. But I will get up and I will say, oh, I think I'll go to Unity today, and then I don't go because it's not attracting me. And I started at Unity Golden Valley, which was the only Unity church. It was very small. It wasn't as big as it is now. It was probably held as many people as Unity North does. But from the day I arrived, the very first Sunday, and somebody passed me one of their bulletins, somebody I really hardly knew, said, here's my church. And I was, okay. And I said, from that day forward, I went. I remember the sermon was by Don Clark, and it was the I am that I am. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I was raised Catholic. And then at the end, they sang the peace song. And it was like, and I've been looking. I was raised, went to a Catholic school, was confirmed Catholic, changed, was confirmed Lutheran, didn't make much difference, tried Presbyterian, nope. Then I just stopped. And I asked God, I said, well, God got it, and the powers that be, you know.
So Bonita, the essence of what you're saying then is that finding ways to have community other than just Sundays.
Well, that's part of the essence, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Marianne?
I think community is what people want, and what so many people are feeling isolated, and that's a message to get across in a lot of different ways. I love the movie night. I think that's a great idea that brings in more community and an opportunity for discussion. Listening to Paige and Sadie, if there was a video we could put out on half of what they said about what being a member of the Unity community meant to them and how it helped them navigate the real world that adolescents and young people are dealing with, that's what they're struggling with. And they don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to go to church and that's going to help that, because that's, out there. But, the things that Sadie and Paige had to say, and, if we could get that out there in some kind of way where they can say, yeah, this is how I could feel good about myself. I could come home to myself and I could connect with other people. That's what they want.
Yeah, write that down. Someone, we should do a video of that. That would be a good idea. Thank you. We're getting near where we have to wrap up, but so please. Who? Okay. Okay, so let's do a couple more, and then, yeah, go ahead.
I'll be as concise and quick as possible. When we were looking to fulfill our position of the minister, I was on the search committee. One thing that we had talked about during that time, as we were having a challenge, we were seeing the challenge of a Sunday service and attendance. And one thing that we talked about and we really explored pretty deeply was changing the entire model and becoming a center. And that Sunday was not the focus of the center, but that we would be, if we really wanted to be a spiritual center, we would take the needs of the community and manufacture them in a way that would meet the needs, building experiences for families. And it was an out-of-the-box thinking because we were struggling, and there is, I believe, this opportunity to start implementing change in how a center sees itself. So it's an opportunity to kind of chew on and explore what that looks like. It would be chaos, but it could be a beautiful thing.
So I was a YOUer when I was a long time ago. Last week. And the needs that were met by attending YOU are a lot of what I hear Sadie say, a lot of what I hear you say, and a lot of what our teens say that they had met prior to COVID. And it really is social involvement while helping others. I just got a bunch of texts from my teens, and I told them I would summarize. And it teaching interesting classes was one of the ideas, like the different religions, different things, different practices, and also socializing. So like the Sunday, I'm just going to try and summarize this, but the Sunday classes were, in a sense, to facilitate the relationships that then spread outside of the, so online is really hard to do that, but online is really hard to do that unless there's a structure. And a lot of what they were finding this last year was getting together online to have an open speak, and then people wouldn't show up or people were quiet. And so at this moment, our 17-year-old is the only YOUer that had been hanging around. There was one other one, and they both stopped coming because of the lack of people and socializing and stuff like that. And I don't know that they've come back at this point. But that's the YOU. And our young ones really want the same that Serena wants. They want people, and they have been attending online a lot of the time, partially because we make them. But Raven has put her foot down and just doesn't want to do it online anymore. She's done with that.
Thank you. I want to be clear as one of the parents here that I find no fault at all with Kathleen or the program that she has put together. I think she does an awesome job with our youth, and she has put a call out several times for someone to come forward and lead our YOU. So far that hasn't happened, but I don't want to give anyone the impression that I am in any way finding fault with Kathleen, because that's certainly not the case. And I see her coming across the way here. I wonder if there's something she wanted to say.
Out there for help. I'm going to come to the front. The call has been out there for a very long time for help. I love the kids, and I let Liz know today. She heard it directly from me that I am here for the kids. I want to see what my kids had from the beginning. I know some of my kids were, one in particular, was very, very shy and didn't want to socialize a whole lot. And then I had the other spectrum. And you all know who that one is. Kathy, you really haven't had much of an opportunity to meet that one yet. Right. She'll be here. But I'm really, we can't run a youth program without youth, without teachers. And I could really, I am the teacher, the director. I'm trying to get YOU going. I'm going to be there for YOUers if I can find a day and a time for them that will all work for them. I'm going to try to figure out a time for Uniteens, because we can't do all 3 classes all at the same time with one leader. So, like Rhonda said, the call's been out there, and if you're so inclined, it's really not hard work. It's actually a whole lot of fun to hang with these kids. It is fun. And I just loved, well, she's not here now, but Marlo remembered me from 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, yeah! And kids will remember you and have so much fun, and there is a great connection with the kids. And it keeps you young at heart, right? That's what I'm going with. All right.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen.
I just want to comment too, somebody mentioned having live classes again. Well, we're dipping our toe in the water with that with a live workshop next Sunday. And it's a minister that he was here once virtually with us last year, but I can vouch for him. I've worked with him in the former region for years. He's been a minister over 41 years. He was the minister of the large San Diego church, and he's going to be here live because he and his wife are from the area. So and I said to him, I'm not sure whether your workshop will fly. We don't know if people are willing to come live yet. And he said, this has been part of my spiritual practice. It's the intersection of the 12 powers and the Lord's Prayer. He said, it's been part of my spiritual practice for 40-something years. If anybody shows up, I'm willing to share it. So, so come. That's the thing. I know different things attract different people, but this is the beginning to see even if we get people who will show up in person. Yes, Aaron and
The question is, what is the age requirement for teachers? And I'm walking across the hall to put that question to Kathleen because I don't know. I'll get back to you.
I think they may have dropped it to 23, actually. Yeah. Ages for sponsors is you have to be at least 21 to be a sponsor to the teens. But if you are 21, you need another older, 25 and older sponsor to join you. So I would just say 25 at least, usually.
so
Sponsor-wise, yes,
Yeah.
25. You can be a junior sponsor at 21, but you have to have a regular another sponsor with you to be a junior sponsor. As far as teachers for Unity and YES, someone who is somewhat of an adult and wants to have fun with children, 18 or older. Not really a big requirement there. 18 or older. Yeah.
Thank you. So please let some of your ideas percolate. Email me, email Wanda, our board president. Let us know your ideas and let us know if you're interested in the expansion team. And if you can think of any other action items for us, we're happy to follow up. Yes, Nancy, real quick. Pardon me? Yeah.
So until somebody does the social media, I've been working on creating content. I've built my entire business through Instagram. And so what I want to invite you, first off, get on Instagram. Do not make it a spectator sport. You need to interact. The more interaction and the comments that you make, then the Unity North can respond. That starts to create an algorithm that throws you into content more. Yes, the hashtags matter, but truly it's about interacting. And so don't spectate sport. Don't just go look and see what they're doing. Actually, if we want social media to work, and you're all on social media, but actually this is your work. It's not up to somebody that we hire to fix this. This is up to us to show up and to actually put feet on it and be there for each other and encourage each other. And I'm just saying it's not a spectator sport. It can't fall on a committee and it can't fall on somebody we've hired. It falls on us where we really show up for each other.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate all your comments and for this feeling of community today. And thank you to Sadie and Paige, and for our younger people who are with us today. So please keep talking. Yes. Oh, okay. Okay, wave to our virtual people. And we just, and I just encourage you to also keep speaking that affirmation daily with us. So we're all united in intention and affirmation. So thank you. God bless you all. And there's, there's cookies across the hall, cookies, lemonade, juice.